Stigma, A Path to Recovery. Hosted by Fredd Carroll and life coach Scott H. Silverman. A mental health awareness and addiction recovery podcast. Don't be ashamed of your story. It will inspire others. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery. I'm your host, Fredd Carroll, and that is on the bottom, Scott H. Silverman. And today we have our friend, Bethany Dwyer, who was brought to us by our other good friend, Rachel Cove, who is your best friend. Is she your best friend?
She's a good friend, yeah.
Good friend. She's fun. She's a
fun
girl.
I haven't known her that long to say that she's my best friend, but maybe she's on her way. We don't know.
Well, we know that she's the extrovert and you're the introvert.
Absolutely.
We know that because I pay attention to TikTok because that's where I get all my news.
Good.
But you also are if I get this completely right, you are a comedian, you are a writer, you are a director, and you are a mental health advocate. And those are
in that order? In that order?
The order depends on the day, actually. But
and who you're talking to and what mirror you're looking in?
Yeah, and I can't imagine not being all of those, by the way. And I don't think anyone needs to choose. I think
so when you take yourself out to eat, do you need a table for five or you just eat alone?
You know what's funny is I've never been asked that. And I would find it, I don't like too much room is too many choices. So I would stick with the smallest table possible. Yeah, so not everyone's always invited.
So Scott, I'm going to let you lead the way for a few minutes while I do some production on my end, and I'm going to shut my mouth for a little while, just a little while until we start arguing about pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some DiGiorno the other day.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Sorry for that.
I know. And I was thirsty for 2 days. Like I had
wow. With so much salt. Yeah.
Yeah, the sodium.
Yeah.
So Bethany, for those who don't know you, and I don't know you, we're just met, but you seem to have a genuineness about you that's really attractive and engaging. So being a comedian, I think I heard, and a mental health advocate. So since I kind of come from the world of recovery and working with others and just celebrated my anniversary, my sober birthday on Saturday, the 13th, 37 years.
Whoa, nice.
So I'm more sober than you are on the planet. So tell us what should people know about not who you are, but what should people know? I mean, if they were to bump into you, they'd be able to say, you know, that person's really what should we know about you? Tell us. Or what do you want us to know about you? How about that?
Yeah, I would say I'm an extremely passionate person. I really, and I know you outed me as the introvert that I am, but interestingly enough, I'm really interested in other people. And I want to know their stories, and I want to know what makes them tick and doesn't make them tick. And my experience also being in program and in recovery for 6 years. And my life has completely done a 180 since that entry. And I knew that, so going in, I've been a comic, a writer, director, all that stuff for almost all my life. And since I went into program, it really started to make sense to me what my purpose is. And what I mean by that is stand up, and that message, I love, it's a part of who I am in comedy. And now I found a way to integrate these wonderful messages within the comedy context. So you have a wonderful lightness to something that is incredibly heavy. And I think it can be interpreted and communicated in a way where it's more relatable and it hits more people. And so I've found that that's something I'm really good at. And all of a sudden, it's like my two worlds went whoop, like this. And everything kind of started to make sense for me. And why
tell me, sorry to interrupt, but I have a small brain because Fredd has just squeezed it in a vice for so long. And by the way, I don't think of you as an introvert, and he was the one who labeled you, and he does that as a way of trying to flip a switch and see if he can get your attention. But I'm ADHD, so I bounce around. He can't quite catch me because I don't know where I'm at. But the two things, talk about those. I mean, what two things came together? So I'm clear. I just want to be
okay.
clear.
So comedy, my love of comedy, doing
Okay.
stand-up, having a message and being heard is a huge component and driving force of why I'm a stand-up. I mean, I felt like I wasn't heard through my life. This is obviously through a lot of work of me finding out why you find your purpose, right?
Yeah.
I luckily got on stage and I knew it the second I got on stage. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
But I rarely felt fully satiated doing that. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was because I have an artist brain. I'm also ADD, but I have an artist brain. So I can constantly ruminate if I let myself and beat myself up. I'm not big enough. I don't have any social, because I can't stand social media. Like I don't have enough followers. I could do all that stuff. And I was thinking that's what the part of me that wasn't fully fulfilled was. And then I got into program and learning about things that I felt already, but never kind of translated or talked about. Now, I had been a transformational speaker for quite some time as well.
Talk about, do me a favor, let me push you a little bit on when you use the word program, because it's kind of a vague term. And some of us who are in the program I don't want to misinterpret. Do you mind sharing?
No, do you mean 12-step?
Well, whatever it means to you. I mean.
Right. So what I mean is 12-step program, basically doing the inventory of your life, making amendments, making amends,
which turns out to be amendments,
amendments, right.
Like, heck, you know what? Use that. That is great. Making amendments. I will use that at my home group. I love that. That's that. Because you know what? And you think about it, what it is taking the basic script, amending it, and then adding something to it, and finding that once you get down the road a little bit more, you have to amend it again to make the adjustment to get to the mend. I love that. I've never heard that.
And hopefully you make it enough that it is an amendment, like almost like it's written down, you won't do it again kind of thing, Right.
Assuming you're in escrow.
Yeah. But anyway, so I, for whatever reason, my love and passion for helping others and my comedy mind never saw each other. Like I didn't see the piece yet that I could do these two things together. Like it just didn't make sense. Like, so I was doing this over here and doing this over here. And then all of a sudden I was like, why aren't I putting these two things together so that it's much more easily heard and much more entertaining? And I find laughter to be empowering. I find it, whether I'm the one delivering and creating the laughter, or if I'm in a moment of laughter, it's quite empowering. It's like you're in the moment. I say right here, right now, because it's the most beautiful place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting that you, between I'm gonna assume, are we talking alcohol here? Was alcohol?
For me, I have many, but I'm actually in Al-Anon.
Okay.
But I have lots of addictions as well. None that are, it's not like a drugs, alcohol thing for me. It's like I had debt for a long time. I had trouble connecting with others. So it was those types of programs, and Al-Anon and child's ACA too.
Wow, yeah. So between the comedy and stuff, because a lot of this goes around, a couple questions I was going to ask you was how you balance it, but you kind of answered that. You kind of molded them together rather than balance them separate, because it is a difficult thing, because comedy could come off like in my comedy, I tend to say something wrong, that doesn't match up with ending the stigma, for instance. But it's for the laugh. I'm seeking the laugh and I'm forgetting about the cause and all that. Are you able to mold those things together, or do you separate them there in your comedy routine?
No, I do meld them together. And I think we don't give enough credit to those who are listening, because if I were to like conform or change or try and filter while I was doing any type of comedy I feel like my message comes through because I'm being sincere and honest and genuine in the whatever topic I'm talking about. I haven't really found any backlash when I do jokes within. And by the way, it's all off the cuff. There's never any time where I'm like scripted and I'm sitting here. That's not how I do my speaking engagements at all. I like to use the audience, and I like to just talk.
You read the room very well. I could tell. I watched the Ice House, where you had a bunch of lawyers in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So you immediately switched. I could see the switch almost, like you just went into that. You catered to that audience.
Correct.
And you made them laugh.
Yes. And then if you see me doing any 12-step program where I'm also speaking at that, then you'll see how I'll switch that as well. So a lot of my stand-up is improv stand-up. So I work the audience in the first 15 minutes, like based on who's in the audience, and then I'll use it throughout my entire routine. And I do the same when I'm doing any transformational speaking, or I'm coaching, or any of that nature, or in my groups at facilities. I really try to call up and use humor to kind of break that energy. Like, so often what I find disheartening, and especially I've been doing facilities, group facilities, who are dealing with recovery. So basically places that are either mental health or in recovery. I'll go in and I do hour-long or sometimes hour-and-a-half long group facilitating. All right. And most of the time I can still make a joke about something that may seem harsh in the real world. But when you're around like-minded people going through the same thing, it's just like any of the AA meetings or any 12-step program. When you make fun of yourself, everybody gets it. Right? Everybody's laughing and we're like, oh, and there's those moments that no matter if you're one person there thinking that you're alone and nobody understands you, when you all laugh together, there's a part in the brain back here in the amygdala, that innate sense that makes you go, oh, like if you're laughing and I'm laughing, we must have some sort of similar, and all this happens immediately, right? So in other words, it's a good way to break the ice, a good way to create bonds within a group immediately, whether I'm dealing with 10 people or 4,000 people, it doesn't matter.
I'm more interested right now in how you don't smack that leaf out of your it's almost like having hair in your face.
I love plants. And this is Herbert, and he loves my face. So Herbert needs to stick around. I like nature, and when I'm inside, I need it to be next to me.
I could tell from your post, your social media posts and stuff, that you are a nature seeker. You're very positive and upbeat. One of them is to tell you, first of all, congratulations, because I see you're getting married, correct?
Thank you. Yes.
And
got engaged.
And I saw, and that's the proposal right there. And you got to honor somebody who matches their socks to their sweatshirt. That is very important in life. And he looks like a lot of fun. He's also your podcast partner, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And what is your podcast?
Our podcast is called A Couple of Nuts Talking. And we have a couple of nuts, or we go by ACON by short, ACON. But we do lots of different things. Like we have a cooking show. So it's A Couple of Nuts Cooking. That's on YouTube. You know, everything we do, we just put a colon and then say talking or cooking or getting engaged or whatever. But we have a podcast about, I call it like an oasis for your brain, because don't go to this podcast thinking you're going to learn all these amazing things, because you're going to learn some stuff because we're both in program. And you'll hear wonderful kind of moments of gratitude and all these wonderful things. But most of the time it's just farts and burps and talking about shits and just real gross stuff, body stuff, normal stuff people don't talk about out loud. We broke down like the art of necrophilia. Like it's just, we get into the brain and what people are afraid to talk about, and we sit there and we talk about it. And we're both super silly and funny. And so it just ended up working.
And where could people find that? On Apple?
We're streaming on everything. Yep. Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Facebook now. It's on there.
Yeah.
And
so what do you,
A Couple of Nuts.
Scott, you think we should start doing stuff like that? I bet you she's got a bigger audience.
Sure, she does. I think it'd be fun. Maybe the four of us get together and take a long trip in a motorhome and just do live broadcasts every hour. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
I don't know how much fun people have with me. There's not a lot of joy around
So
I
you
here.
get
could-
that vibe from you.
Yeah,
Fred.
Yeah.
I
it's
get
not a
that
lot of
vibe.
joy.
You
I
could
grow.
You could do the driving, Fred. You could do the driving, and I'll make the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and
Oh, I was going to
Bethany-
say he could do the driving and running the errands to go get food.
Yeah. Well, you would want somebody on the East
while
Coast
you're driving. I mean,
Yeah,
while you're
and then we
driving,
need
that'd be great.
somebody to clean the porta potty.
Right. I could do that.
So-
I could do that. I could do those things.
Yeah.
But no, I think I do. I'll grow on you. How's that? I grow on you, right,
I
Scott?
have moles
like
that
a
grow on me.
plant, like a plant, exactly.
Like a plant,
right.
like him. What's his name again?
Herbert.
Herbert. Like
Yeah.
Herbert.
Yeah.
Herbert. So
You know what? Do you know what they say about people that give plants names? Right?
No.
It's a question. I don't know either. I just-
Oh. Got ya. I wish I had the answer. How about dope? That's what it is. That's what it means.
Yeah. I think from all our guests that come on here, Scott, I also see that we should be in the glass company business because everybody wears glasses. Everybody wears reading glasses of some sort.
Well, these aren't like prescription. They're for screens because I was finding during COVID having to do everything on a screen that I was getting headaches. So they're like called blue lenses or something.
Yeah, you're a lot younger than us, though. She's got her age. She'll catch up to us, Scott, with the reading glasses.
Wow, wishing blindness on me. Thank you.
Wishing.
No, just
Wait.
no. Sight impairment. There's a difference.
Yeah, sight impairment. It's not
Okay, got it,
blindness.
got it.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't want to punish anybody. We don't want to feel like we're alone with our pain. That's all I think.
Do you want to know
feels like.
something funny? Is I actually coach people on this because so for let's just take for instance what Fred said, like, oh, don't worry, in a couple years you'll meet us or whatever. So a lot of what like our through society and what a lot of obviously the media does, social media, news media, all that stuff, is the propaganda and programming of when you hit this age, you're going to be like this. And when you hit this age, you're going to be like this. And when you hit this age, if you haven't done this, poo-poo on you, like all these things, right? It's like this timeline. And isn't it incredible that time's the only thing is a huge thing that we can't control, yet they're making it our fault for living a wonderful, for living our lives to fruition. And what happens is through life when you're a kid and as you grow up and whoever's in front of you, let's say time wise, they implant these seeds. And incredibly enough, if you tell a 5-year-old enough, hey, so mom walks in the door and goes, oh God, ever since I turned 30, my back's just killing me. Oh man, my back. And by the way, we have grandparents, uncles, and everyone does this. That 5-year-old doesn't know they remember that. But when they turn 30, they will. And they go, oh, my back's supposed to hurt. Not that they're saying it's supposed to hurt. It just will start hurting.
Right. It's projecting too. It's complete projecting.
Yes, yes. And I think that it's something that we can try to quell as much as possible because we don't realize that it's actually putting that out in the universe and people are catching it.
But at the same time, you don't even realize we're saying it because we've also been trained that way as children to just speak, these little sayings that are stuck in your head and stuff. It's the same people that told somebody to mow your lawn every 2 weeks and it grows back. Is it really supposed to be mowed, a lawn? We don't know, but somebody started mowing their lawn and now every guy thinks he has to have a beautiful lawn. It's just it's from a grandfather and it goes back to the past. Unless you're Scott. Scott, do you mow your lawn? Do you even have a lawn in San Diego?
It looks like he has sunflowers.
I do have a lawn, but I have my we've trained the dogs. They do it. It's easier. This is California. I mean, we want people to be liberated. So we've trained the dogs. Takes 2 of them. And we're trying to find an electric one now. So we're going to be a little more, sensitive to the environment.
Fred, you didn't know that nobody does their lawn in California?
No.
Like they all have gardeners. Just so
I
you
have
know.
never crossed the Mississippi. The furthest I have been is Chicago, ironically.
You're
That
welcome.
is, my sister lived in Naperville, and that's the furthest I've ever been. And someday Scott's going to invite me over his house, and I'm going to stay with him in San Diego.
Yep. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to have him mow the lawn, Bethany. Just
do
That's
it.
right.
so he can, even if I have to rent a lawnmower or get my neighbors, I will make sure you get it. Nothing else. Maybe we'll get a tent and we'll set up, on the lawn.
Yeah. I
Unless
love
the
it.
drought takes everything away, you know, and then you have to drain your pool and put a big garden out there. So Bethany, what do you want to ask us?
You know what? I don't even know anything about you guys. So tell me a little bit about you. I just got connected through Rachel. Fredd reached out. And so give it to me. What's your pitch? What's
Actually,
your...
we don't take questions like that. So let's go to let's take your second question first.
Okay.
So there are a lot though.
Go ahead, Fredd, you go first.
Well, I just wanted
you?
to say Rachel praised you, first of all. Rachel wanted you to be on this show. You're the first person she mentioned to me right after we were finished with her show. And she said, you have to get my friend Bethany. And I friended you immediately right from there and started talking to you about a week, because she actually came back to me a week later and said, have you reached out to Bethany yet? Because I think she'll be great for your show and all that. So she was great on our show, first of all. She was great. Her brother, Jesse, was great on my other show. I had Jesse on my Head of Fredd show. And, you know, obviously I was aiming for Martin. I was aiming for Martin when I reached out and ended up with them, and I couldn't be happier. You know, it really made, you know, I guess if I'm ever going to get Martin, you might as well go through the children. That's the best way to go. But what made you go from Chicago to LA? What drove you that way?
Oh God, to get away from my family. Oh boy. No, I'm kidding. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there was part of that. No, I did it because I've always wanted to pursue acting and be in the entertainment business, writer, actor. And I knew it just wasn't gonna happen in Chicago for me. I knew I had a lot of distractions. So I moved out here. I actually moved to New York for a little bit first, and it's just not my vibe. No offense to New York. I don't like it. I think I lasted 2.5 months and I was like, get me out of here. And then I moved to LA, and I loved the weather, obviously coming from Chicago. It's the thing that makes you stay. But then, yeah, I was able to find some connections and just meet like-minded people and who were doing the same thing, kind of pursuing the same.
It is interesting though, because Chicago does offer all the things you do. They're very famous for all the things you do, from John Hughes, the directing and the writing and the comedy, Second City and all that stuff.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is they're incredible at stage, but that wasn't what I wanted to pursue. So I wanted to be a stand-up, and I wanted to do like film and TV acting. And we're talking about like tiny, minuscule amount of that available in Chicago. And then in LA, you're talking about 99% of everything, especially back then. You're talking about most of everything was shot here. I mean, nowadays, in the last, I don't know, less than 10 years, they started going elsewhere and shooting. So now we shoot in Atlanta, they shoot in Vancouver, right?
All over.
So and now they're starting to shoot even more in Chicago, just all over the US, because it's cheaper, it's easier. So in that way, it's great. But back when I started, it wasn't like that at all. It was all theater, and that's just not what I wanted to do. For instance, like agents, managers, there also wasn't a great amount of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different style, because I had spoken to John Candy's daughter in an interview, and she's in Chicago as an actress, and she's
also John Candy's daughter.
Yeah, that makes it.
I yell at my parents all the time because they're nobodies. I call them up and I get fucking angry at them. Like, why weren't you something? Why weren't you anybody? And then I hang up and I feel much better. But no, I think when you have a wonderful network like that, or some sort of kind of route that directs you right in that way, fantastic. Take advantage of it. I didn't have that. I don't have that.
So do you talk about what led you down this path somewhere? Well, I guess you probably do talk about it since you put it on social media. Otherwise, I wouldn't know it. You were robbed, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Do you talk about that? What it was, what you went through with that?
I do. I talk a lot about it when I need to. But okay. So just an overview without getting into details. I was working, I was a love consultant. So I would consult couples and single women on how to have better sex, how to communicate better in a relationship, all this stuff. So I worked at this lovely, beautiful women run and own sex shop that was built basically on the foundation of communication, which is my specialty. So I was there, I got robbed. Two people came in, nylons over their head, guns, and had a gun to the back of my head for 27 minutes. And a lot ensued during that time. I found out, and you quite quickly find out, by the way, if you're ever in some sort of dangerous situation, the type of person you are and the type of person I am, as I got really calm during it. My other two people, one of my employees at the time and another patron of the store, were in hysterics. And for whatever reason, what happened to me was I got uber clear. And I remember feeling like energy just go around me. And I felt very protected in the moment. I was terrified, but I felt protected. And I knew if I kept calm, it would help. So anyways, went through that whole thing. 27 minutes later, again, gun to the back of my head. I saw my whole life pass before me. It was more like in feelings and not so much pictures, how people say like they see it. I didn't really see it. It was like happy, sad, joyous, love, hate. It was like this crazy arc of emotions while this was happening, where it felt like time stood still. And then they finally left, and I had a huge, like, disparaging human moment that happened after that made me quite sad, almost sadder than the robbery, when, for lack of going into major detail again, there was an establishment across the street that all of us would go to, all the employees, every day, like 4 times a day. We'd get food, we'd buy pop, we'd do all this stuff. It was a very small little store, but we supported it. And I ran across the street hysterical. They had a line out the door because of the time. It was like around 7 p.m. is a big time for them. And we all knew each other's name. And I was yelling, I was like, I need your phone. We've just been robbed. And he was telling me, go, get out. What are you doing? Because he had customers. And every single customer handed me their cell phone, every single one. And I was like, I'm on my cell phone. It's not where, like it wasn't getting the cops. So that was a big moment. So anyways, after that, just so you know, a little background of me, I have major stage fright. I have anxiety about getting on stage like no one's business, like Mitch Hedberg style stage fright. If you don't know who that is, look him up. He's amazing. He's also dead from an OD. But he has major stage fright too. And he used to wear blinding glasses that would keep him from seeing the audience. But it was after that moment where I decided I can make this moment define me and be terrified of everyone, terrified of going anywhere. It could make me this big if it wanted to. And I decided to take it and look at what I could learn from it. And what it helped me do is to decrease the size of the fear that I had getting on stage, because it was keeping me from being a stand-up. I was acting, but I was afraid to get on stage by myself. And there was a moment where I remember saying, the audience doesn't have a gun. Like, that's the scariest thing that I've been through. No one's going to have a gun to my head. My life isn't threatened in any way. Why does this scare me? And it's the impetus that got me on stage. So
that's amazing.
I am grateful for that moment. I'm grateful for everything I've gotten from it. I can pull from it at times and help others who've had some sort of trauma in their life. And it's one of many things that people would consider like, whoa, that's not great to have happened to you, but it's all in perspective and it's all how you use it.
That's
and
great.
I think, yeah.
That's great. I think I got to explain to Scott something real quick. Scott, people up in Chicago, in Cleveland and stuff, they call it pop. They don't call it soda. It's pop.
Oh, yeah.
It's pop.
Did you not know that? Was that something did your brain stop working right when you heard pop and you were like, what's this?
I heard all that. Pop. What's
You
pop?
know, tuck and roll, pop.
Right.
We here in California.
No, but that's great that, I mean, do you think your calmness had anything to do with their hysterics because you knew somebody had to stay calm? Do you think that played a role? Maybe not thinking it that way, but.
You
just,
mean in energy vibe, like
Yeah.
the balance?
Yeah.
I would say that if we were all in the same room, but those
Oh.
two were in the front where they entered. I was in the back, and I honestly believe my calmness came. I'll just tell you, it came, I think, from my grandfather, who I felt his presence with me, because there was a moment where, so I sit in the back and I do all of these inventory and everything for the store. And I had a moment where I was like, I want to go home. And I grabbed the keys. It was 6:55 and I looked at the clock and I was like, I want to go home. We should just close up right now. And I have no idea where that voice in my head came from. And it didn't sound like me. It was like something said, go home now. And so I remember I picked up the keys, but I was training somebody. And so in my head, I went, how bad does that look? Me closing the store while I'm training early. And I talked myself out of my gut and I put the keys down. And I remember feeling such a warmth and heat from the side of my face. And like I said, then it wrapped up around me and I look left and there's a gun in my face. And so had I listened to my gut, listened to the voice in my head, whether it was God or HP or nature or whatever you believe, I don't care. Something told me to move and I didn't. And I didn't listen. And so it was another lesson where now where I get any type of message, I listen, I got you.
I think it's a great story to tell people because it doesn't have to be a gun to your head, but like you said, any negative could be, you turned a negative into a positive. A negative situation became your reason or a better excuse if, to not fear getting up on stage and stuff. So do you think of it every time now? I mean, the minute you get up there, you're thinking this is not going to be the worst time of my life.
Right. Well, I mean, being an artist and being a comic, if you know any comics, we're quite hard on ourselves. Most of us, I don't know about everyone. I can just speak for myself. Extremely, extremely hard. So I would have those moments. Yeah. Every time I go on stage, I have to remind myself, like, I'm all about, if I coach it, like I got to live it. So I can't sit here and be like, oh my God, I'm going on stage and having all of my power anxiety, I call it, because it can keep me from doing things. So it's got like a strength. So I have to figure out, how do I diffuse it? How do I get rid of it or eliminate it altogether? As I've practiced and go through the years, it gets easier, it gets quicker and better, right? But like if I have a lull, and by lull, I mean 2 weeks without going up, I have to have the dialogue before. Yes, I have to tell myself, because I know where I can go. And so it's just better to be like, I got this. Like, I don't, whatever.
Yeah,
That's
it's interesting. It's interesting watching. I watched like 4 or 5 sets of yours. And it's interesting because I noticed what you do is you give yourself, you're very patient. You're a patient comic. You don't just, you're not going crazy and you're very calm. You just breathe it through and you have a lot of pausing and you're good at your pacing and stuff. And you read that room. It was very intriguing for me to watch from comical standpoint and just learning about you, who you are and stuff. So,
I was going to say,
yeah, good.
In our pauses, whether it's in life or comedy, it's where life's happening in those pauses, because nobody has to listen anymore and nobody else is talking, but you're getting so much information. And as a comic, when I sit in the pause, it's my favorite part, because I get to see everyone's face and it's like, oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. All right. And now we can move on. And sometimes you can have an extra laugh that happens if you're patient, right? Because some people don't think as quick as others.
Oh, no, it's definitely noticeable in your act, too, that your pauses are where all of a sudden a light goes off. Because there's a few where you even point out, now you get it, right? You got that now. You just got that. But
yeah, and that's been through years, because when you first start, your natural inclination is, I have so much information I'm going to give you guys, just sit back and listen, and you really like blah 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 blah. And a lot of times a brain wants to react, but if you keep powering through, you're basically teaching the audience you don't have time to laugh.
Right.
So just listen.
So something we don't talk a lot about on this show, and you had brought up, maybe you could explain to people what did you say the group you were a part of? What do you call that again? The
improv group, you mean?
No, for the alcohol.
Al-Anon.
Al-Anon. Yeah, can you tell people what Al-Anon is?
Sure. So Al-Anon is a 12-step program, and it is based on, if you have anybody who uses any type of substance, is an alcoholic addict, in your family, around you, maybe a loved one, maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband, whatever, and you seek these rooms in help of alleviating that and learning more information on how to get some tools to deal with that, right? Because there's an enabling, the addict and the enabler, they fit perfect. There's nothing, there's not a better match for that. And so when you go to Al-Anon, you learn how you are an enabler, a fixer. And I honestly believe everybody could benefit. I wish they taught this in school. I do, because, and you don't even have to say it's 12 steps, just do these kind of things to help learn who you are. But they say that like AA gives you back your life, and Al-Anon gives you quality of life.
Okay.
And what to do with it, right? So, and I believe that from being in both rooms. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think.
So Scott, you got anything to add here before we wind down?
People always, not always, but when you meet with people that don't believe in the program, because they just think that, if you don't pick up a drink, you won't have a drinking problem. If you didn't go to the casino, you wouldn't have a gambling problem. If you didn't watch 20 hours of internet every day, you wouldn't have an addiction to the internet. But people always say, well, you people in your steps. And I go, not me at my age. I take the elevator whenever I can. So, I joke about it just because I know that, I run a treatment center here in San Diego called Confidential Recovery. We work with a lot of professionals. We've actually had one or two local comedians as well that we've treated. And we provide an environment for treatment, because I believe one size does not fit all. I also believe that the stigma around addiction and getting help and recovery seems to be an unknown barrier that, we work hard. I work hard. I mean, I have my own podcast. It's called Happy Hour, and it's all about trying to expose opportunities for people to talk about how do we reduce the stigma, and then when I met Fred, and he goes, well, let's do this and let's do that, and ending the stigma, it was a natural for me, because I think that, we're losing 240 people every single day to the opioid crisis. I mean, so and that's just opioids and prescription and street and also counterfeit. And when you factor in alcohol and gambling and suicide, and then all the other behavioral health issues, untreated trauma, PTS, it's just, we're just too smart as a community and a society to sit back and watch this happen. So what I have to say, Fred, is, as always, is we need to be talking about it. So Bethany, thank you for talking about it today. It's so important. And one day when we have more than 4, viewers, and 2 of them are on a cell block, we found out, but they have access to the internet through their secret phone. So we're really excited, because with you being here today, that's actually 5, which means we've increased our audience by about 23%. So to me, that's a trajectory we want to camp on. So we'll certainly get you back, and I'd love to get you on our happy hour, and I'd love to have you zoom in and talk to our class. We serve a lot of veterans, and
that's my favorite.
When it comes to people in recovery who are told in the beginning, well, you have to get rid of your friends and your playmates and play places and play things, and you have to start over life. And then every time you go to a meeting, you have to stand up and introduce yourself as a drug addict. It's kind of this mixed message where, it's a little confusing, and there's science around that whole issue now with the 12 steps about how people are, negatively reinforcing their negative behavior by introducing themselves basically as a loser. So I understand how changing, words, and, I introduce myself now as an, retired unlicensed pharmacist, because, every time I say drug dealer, people like, oh, so when I say unlicensed pharmacist, I always get an applause. So
can I say something? Because it was very interesting what you said. You said we have people introducing themselves basically as a loser by saying they have this addiction or this. Again, if we change the perspective of that, by them saying I'm an addict, and then you're in the right place at the right time, I find you winning, not a loser.
Right.
And so in the rooms, I've never felt that vibe of like when every time somebody identifies that all of a sudden the eyes are you're a loser. I find that if you're in this room, you are winning. And if you are suiting up and showing up, you're winning.
The therapeutic clinical world
Mm-hmm.
of people who have gotten credentialed, which I'm not, they've taken a position, and a lot of people in the therapeutic clinical world are in recovery. And what's fascinating, because I've studied a lot of science around what works, and what's interesting is across the board, when somebody goes to an inpatient program and does nothing else afterwards, there's a 95% relapse rate. And that's the industry's outcome, whether it's laypersons, anecdotal, long-term studies, blind studies, experience, and data. So what's interesting is I want to change that, because I think we need to reinforce what works, and we need to stop criticizing what doesn't work. I mean, I kind of make fun of it because I believe one size doesn't fit all, and trying to get everybody into a certain box to treat them. And look, I'm Jewish. I went to a Christian program and I was told I have to get on my knees to pray. And I remember checking in with my rabbi. He goes, we don't do that. He goes, Jewish people don't have drinking problems. God is within us. I said, well, Rabbi, he came to visit me in treatment. I got a wristband here. I'm in a locked facility. And I came here because I had blackouts and nearly killed myself in New York on business. He says, again, Jewish people do not have drinking problems. God is within us. I said, well, if God is within us, then I'll tell you, he's a party animal, because
he's thirsty.
Last week, we had a hell of a week that I can't really remember, but I had enough people around me who sent me notes. This is before email, reminding me what a knucklehead I'd been. And I got picked up by the police in the gutter across from the train station in my little three-piece suit with my London fog jacket on. So I'm that classic alcoholic that, people talk about. And today I run a treatment center. I do interventions with families. I just wrote my second book, The Opioid Epidemic. I'm doing Ending the Stigma with, Fredd, and I'm trying to do everything I can as a subject matter expert to help save lives and avoid going to funerals.
He's a good guy. He's a good man. He's a good man. One thing I wanted to say to you, Scott, was you had mentioned when you mentioned your 37 years or 38?
37 this last Saturday. Yeah.
So you mentioned it in a Facebook post, and then you mentioned your wife. And I don't know if you saw what I wrote underneath it, because you mentioned how your wife had saved your life and stuff. And I disagreed with you, because you're the one that always tells me that you couldn't have gotten the help if you didn't want the help. So I want to give you credit for what you did. I'm sure your wife plays a huge role, and I know she plays a huge role in supporting you. But without you and the guts you took to make that step, none of it would have happened. It wouldn't have mattered. And we do talk about that a lot on here, that you have to help yourself first. You got to want the help before we could help you.
Well, and I mentioned that recently because there's a couple of things I need from her that she's just not doing. And I think it helped.
Yeah.
It's a form of, one of the things that most addicts and alcoholics do that are really great skills, and I don't know if it's true for you, Bethany, is, we lie, cheat, and manipulate. But in recovery,
manipulate's the best.
But in recovery, we get better at it. We try to manage it in a way where it looks like we're now advocating, stimulating, and creating for others. But we color it differently. But no, but I got to tell you, Fredd, she truly, first of all, she's still with me. Which in recovery, people will tell you over time, when you get sober, somebody in that relationship wakes up and goes, who the heck is this? And, we're going to be married 40 years in March, coming up next year. And, back to my story about, being Jewish in a Christian-based program, but technically was born out of the Oxford group in Ohio with Bill and Bob, that I was told I have to learn to pray on my knees. And if I didn't pray on my knees, I wouldn't stay sober. But I was in a world I'd never been in, and I took every suggestion I could. So I talked to my sponsor, who was a devout Christian, and I said, what do I do? How do I get on my knees? He goes, well, look, you're a smoker. At the time I was a smoker. He goes, when you go to bed at night, put your cigarettes underneath your bed. And when you wake up the morning and you find yourself reaching for your cigarettes and you're on your knees, just thank your higher power for getting you through another day. And that's how I learned to pray on my knees.
Yeah, I find it, I often tell my sponsor the same thing. I don't care what they are. It's not about Christians pray on their knees. It's about humility and knowing something's greater than yourself. And it's such a wonderful symbol when you do that.
Yeah.
It's
and everything's a suggestion. So
right.
It's not like, if you don't do this, you're going to die. I took it as a suggestion. I mean, there were some people that really wanted to strongly, firmly suggest it, but you know what? I listen to everybody. And I've learned the last couple of years as a crisis coach, one of the things I tell families is God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. And listening, and I think you resonated with that, Bethany, and you said it about 4 or 5 different ways. If we're not listening to other people, and as Fred said, I'd like to watch some of the stuff you do and maybe even watch you perform, because my sense is that how you work with a crowd is you listen, and it isn't necessarily to the spoken word, but it's to the body language, the reaction, the reflection, the results, the way they laugh or don't laugh, or, because I remember my mom going to see Don Rickles once, and he called her a fat lady, and she said, I'll never listen to that man again, and I said, why would you go in the front row in Vegas when you know that that's what that guy's going to do? You're going to, he can't see 4 rows back, so he's going to pick on the people he can see. Anyway, Fred, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I feel
it did.
Listen,
I don't even remember the question. So
I don't either.
You did great.
No, I knew something about he said I blamed my wife for saving my life.
Oh, right.
I needed some support from her, and she was touched by it, although she didn't believe it. It's interesting. She goes, but she remembered my birthday this year. A couple of years ago, she forgot it. That was bad. She was cooking for herself for a whole month, and I'm the cook in the house. So she lost a lot of weight, really felt good about herself, but she was hungry.
Yeah, good. That's what happens, Scott. But okay, so we got to start winding this down. I wanted to talk real quick about Bethany's. She has a live event coming up, correct, in California. Can you go through that real quick, and I'll provide a link for it also?
Sure. So December 1st, noon, I will be at a facility called Interactions, which is in Encino in California. And they are hosting me, and I'll be doing what I have a program that I created called Be Heard, BE*, which is my nickname, B, and then Heard. And it's a really unique program. I do it in the facilities as well. And I'll be working with each person because there is a limited capacity to it. So I suggest getting in quick. But yeah, it's hard to describe what I do unless you're there. But I do break down a lot of what you're communicating without even knowing you're communicating it. This one is a women only. I do men only, and I do women only. And it's because I get better communication that way. When we cross paths, something happens with both women and men, and I don't get the actual information I need. So by watching body language, tone, facial tics or movements, the way somebody holds their hands and talks is huge. The way they're holding their bottom half of their body, all that kind of stuff. I will translate to them what they're actually saying. I often say in my groups that I don't need to know everything that's happened in your past. I can see it. So I don't need us to rehash 100 times the traumas in your life. Let's find out what it is in your body and where you stored it. And then I'll keep practicing to get it out of you. And because your mind, body, and spirit wants to be like this, yay. And if we can get it out of your body, I don't need to get up here and rehash it. We can get it here. And then your mind follows and goes, oh, we don't need this anymore. And it gets rid of it.
Well, it's a beautiful sentiment. I think you're a great person. I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank Rachel for hooking us up, connecting us. I can't say hooking up anymore. Connecting us. And listen, I hope you'll come on again one day. We're going to continue to do this. I'll get the links from you off when we're off air so I could share them into the show notes and stuff. But Scott likes to give his phone number out. So you want to do that, Scott?
I do. Get your pen ready, Bethany.
Oh, yes.
619-993-2738. Call or text me anytime. Not necessarily you, B, but everybody that's listening. And let's find a way to help you help yourself. And if I can't help you, I promise you, I will find a way to get you help. 619-993-2738. The holidays are here. Family's going to be getting together. It's going to be stressful. And if you're early in recovery, set some boundaries. If you don't know how, call me. And for the families out there, your loved ones coming home, they may still be struggling with the issues around substance use disorders and addiction. Listen. And
the college kids, the kids coming back from college for their first time or second time or third time, whatever year they are, look for those signs also, because they've been away for 2-3 months now and they've changed. So that's great. And of course, I got to close the show again, Scott. You need me to close it?
You've been practicing.
Because I've been practicing, because you've been training me. So I will say,
sit back and listen, B.
You ready? If no one has told you they loved you today, we love you. And that's it for Ending the Stigma, Path to Recovery. We will be back next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.